Sienna Vale's hands shook as she stared at the eviction notice plastered across her studio door, 48 hours before everything she'd built would be gone. Bankruptcy. Betrayal. The end of a dream that had consumed 10 years of her life. She had 2 days to find $60,000 or lose it all. Then her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize, a voice that didn't ask. It commanded. Miss Vale, you will come to the Celestine Tower penthouse tonight at 8. Lucian Moretti has a proposition. She should have said no. She should have run. Instead, she went. If you want to see how Sienna's desperate choice changes everything, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Mom, the elevator to the penthouse didn't have buttons. It required a key card, a fingerprint, and apparently a death wish. Sienna watched the floor numbers climb, 30, 40, 50, her reflection distorted in the polished brass doors. She looked like hell. 3 nights without real sleep, living on coffee, and the kind of anxiety that ate through your stomach lining. Her best blazer had a stain she'd tried to hide with a scarf. Her heels were scuffed. She'd done her makeup in the back of an Uber because her apartment's electricity had been shut off that morning. This was insane. She didn't know Lucian Moretti. Not really. Everyone in the city knew of him. The name whispered in expensive restaurants, the man whose corporate empire had roots no one wanted to examine too closely. Real estate, shipping, import-export. And beneath all of that, if you believe the rumors, something much darker. The elevator slowed, stopped. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Sienna stepped out into a space that made her studio look like a closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, thousands of lights glittering like a scattered fortune. The interior was modern, expensive, and utterly soulless. Black marble, chrome fixtures, furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. Everything about the space screamed control, money, power. And standing by the windows, backlit by the city he seemed to own, was Lucian Moretti. He didn't turn right away. Just stood there, hands in the pockets of trousers that probably cost more than her rent, his silhouette sharp and still against the glass. Miss Vale. His voice was low, measured, the kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to command a room. You're late. Traffic, Sienna said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. You took an Uber. I watched you get out downstairs 12 minutes ago. You stood outside the building for 10 of them, deciding whether to come up. Heat crept up her neck. If you already knew, why comment on it? He turned then, and she got her first real look at Lucian Moretti. The photographs didn't do him justice. Or maybe they did him too much justice because they didn't capture the cold precision in his dark eyes or the way he looked at her like he was calculating her net worth down to the penny. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. Handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like good looks were just another weapon in his arsenal. Dark hair, strong jaw, the kind of face that belonged on currency or wanted posters. But there was something else, a slight stiffness in the way he moved, a barely perceptible favor to his left side. And when he stepped closer, she saw the faint scar that ran from his temple to his cheekbone, almost hidden by his hairline. Because hesitation tells me something, Lucian said. It tells me you're smart enough to be afraid, but desperate enough to come anyway. I'm not afraid of you. His mouth curved. It wasn't quite a smile. Yes, you are. But you're here, which means you're practical. I respect that. He gestured to a leather sofa that probably cost more than her car had before it was repossessed. Sit. Sienna didn't move. I'd rather stand. I wasn't asking. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Sienna sat because fighting over furniture seemed like a stupid hill to die on when she didn't even know why she was here. Lucian remained standing. He moved to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of something amber and expensive looking, and brought one to her. She didn't take it. I don't drink with strangers, she said. We won't be strangers for long. He set the glass on the table in front of her anyway, then took a seat in the chair across from her, close enough to be intimate, far enough to be calculated. I know everything about you, Sienna Vale, 29 years old, graduated top of your class from Parsons, opened your own interior design firm 4 years ago, built it from nothing into something that was starting to matter. Then your business partner. He paused, like he was savoring it. Marcus Chen, embezzled from your accounts, destroyed your reputation with clients you trusted, and left you holding 6 figures of debt you didn't create. Sienna's jaw clenched. If you know all that, then you know I can't help you with whatever this is. I'm broke. I have nothing. You have exactly what I need, which is a wife. The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Sienna laughed. She couldn't help it. It came out sharp and slightly unhinged. You want a wife? What, did the matchmaking apps not work out for you? Lucian didn't react, didn't smile, didn't blink. I need someone intelligent, poised, and capable of playing a role. I need someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain, and I need it done legally, convincingly, and immediately. Why? That's not your concern. The hell it's not. You just asked me to marry you. I didn't ask. I'm offering you a contract. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and suddenly the space between them felt very small. 18 months. You will act as my wife in public, attend events, live in my home, play the part convincingly. In return, I will pay off every cent of your debt, fund the relaunch of your business, and provide you with a settlement at the end that will set you up for life. Sienna's heart was pounding. How much? Your debt is $240,000. I'll clear it immediately. Your business relaunch will require another 100. At the end of 18 months, you'll receive $5 million wired to an account of your choosing. The room tilted slightly. $5 million. She could barely process it. That kind of money didn't exist in her world. That kind of money was a fantasy. What's the catch? Sienna asked. No catch, just terms. Terms. Lucian stood, walked back to the windows, looked out at his city. We will live together but maintain separate bedrooms. No physical intimacy unless absolutely necessary for appearances. You will not ask about my business. You will not interfere with my work. In public, you will be the devoted wife. In private, we will be strangers sharing a house. For 18 months. Exactly 18 months. At the end, the marriage will be quietly dissolved. You'll walk away with your money, your freedom, and a life you can build however you want. Sienna stared at his back. The city lights reflected in the glass, turning him into a silhouette again. Why me? Because you're smart enough to understand this is a business transaction. Because you're desperate enough to say yes. And because when I looked into you, I saw someone who values independence over sentiment. You won't fall in love with me, Miss Vale. You'll take the money and leave. That's exactly what I need. He turned back to face her. Do we have a deal? Sienna's mind was racing. This was insane, illegal probably, definitely dangerous. Lucian Moretti wasn't just rich, he was connected. The kind of connected that made people disappear when they became inconvenient. But she thought about the eviction notice, the debt collectors calling at all hours, Marcus's smug face when he'd cleaned out their accounts and vanished. The 10 years she'd poured into a dream that was dying in 48 hours. She thought about $5 million. I want it in writing, Sienna said. A real contract, legally binding. Already prepared. Lucian moved to a desk, retrieved a folder, and handed it to her. My attorney drafted it this afternoon. Read it. Take your time. You have until midnight to decide. Sienna opened the folder. The contract was thick, dense with legal language, but the terms were clear. 18 months, separate bedrooms, public marriage, private distance, payment schedule, termination clause. At the bottom of the last page, Lucian's signature was already there, bold and certain. Why 18 months? She asked. That's not your concern. You keep saying that, but if I'm going to marry you, even fake marry you, I deserve to know what I'm walking into. Lucian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that might have been respect. I have enemies who believe I'm weak. They're waiting for me to make a mistake so they can take what's mine. A stable marriage projects strength, control. It buys me time to consolidate power and eliminate threats. 18 months is how long I need. Eliminate threats, Sienna repeated slowly. You mean kill people. I mean handle business. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Sienna looked down at the contract. Her hands were shaking again. If I say no, then you say no. I'll have my driver take you home. You'll lose your business, declare bankruptcy, and spend the next decade digging yourself out of a hole Marcus Chen put you in. But you'll have your principles. His voice was flat. Not mocking, just stating facts. If you say yes, your debt disappears tomorrow. Your business relaunches next month. And in 18 months, you'll be free and set for life. No physical intimacy, Sienna said, reading the clause again, unless necessary for appearances. Define necessary. Hand-holding, a kiss on the cheek. Perhaps more if we're being photographed. Nothing beyond what's required to sell the illusion. And in private? In private, we don't touch. Sienna closed the folder, looked up at him. I need a pen. Lucian's expression didn't change, but she saw his shoulders relax slightly. He produced a pen from his jacket. Expensive, black lacquer, the kind that probably had its own insurance policy. Sienna took it, uncapped it, stared at the signature line. This was insane. She signed her name. Lucian took the contract, glanced at her signature, and nodded once. Welcome to the arrangement, Mrs. Moretti. The name felt wrong in her mouth. When do we start? Now. My driver will take you home to pack. You'll move into the estate tomorrow morning. We have our first public appearance Friday night, a charity gala. You'll need a dress. My assistant will handle it. I can dress myself. Not for this, you can't. The people at that gala can smell desperation and discount fabric from across a room. You'll wear what I provide or you'll stay home. Sienna's temper flared. You know what? You're an asshole. Lucian almost smiled. Almost. Yes, but I'm an asshole who just made you a very rich woman. Learn to live with it. The estate was not a house. It was a compound. Sienna stared out the car window as they drove through iron gates that looked like they could stop a tank. The driveway was a quarter-mile long, lined with trees that must have been a century old. The main house, mansion really, was all stone and sharp angles, like something out of a Gothic novel. Lights glowed in some windows. Others were dark, empty. It looked like a beautiful prison. The driver, a man named Vincent, who hadn't said more than 5 words to her, pulled up to the front entrance and opened her door. Sienna climbed out with her 2 suitcases, which suddenly felt embarrassingly small. The front door opened before she could knock. A woman stood there, 50s, gray hair pulled back tight, dressed in black. She looked Sienna up and down with the kind of expression usually reserved for spoiled milk. You must be Miss Vale, the woman said. Her accent was faintly European. Her tone was pure ice. Mrs. Moretti, actually, Sienna said, lifting her chin. The woman's lips thinned. Of course. I am Mrs. Harlow. I manage the household. Mr. Moretti is in a meeting and will join you for dinner at 8. I will show you to your rooms. Rooms, plural. Sienna followed Mrs. Harlow inside. The entry hall was massive, marble floors, a chandelier that probably weighed more than a car, a staircase that split in 2 directions. Everything was immaculate, cold, perfect, soulless. They climbed the stairs, went down a hall lined with closed doors, and finally stopped at a set of double doors near the end. You're sweet, Mrs. Harlow said, pushing the doors open. Sienna stepped inside and tried not to let her jaw drop. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a wing. Sitting area with a fireplace, walk-in closet the size of her old studio, bathroom with a tub you could swim in. And the bedroom itself, dominated by a 4-poster bed draped in silk that probably cost more than everything she owned. Mr. Moretti's suite is across the hall, Mrs. Harlow said. You are not to enter without permission. Breakfast is served at 7, lunch at 1, dinner at 8. If you require anything, use the intercom system. Do not wander the estate unescorted until you are familiar with the layout. Why? Am I a prisoner? Mrs. Harlow's expression didn't change. You are a guest, until you prove otherwise. She turned to leave, then paused. A word of advice, Miss Vale. Mr. Moretti is a private man. He values discretion above all else. If you intend to survive here, remember that. She left, closing the doors behind her. Sienna stood in the middle of her new prison, because that's what it felt like, gold bars or not, and tried to breathe. What the hell had she done? Dinner was exactly as awkward as she'd feared. The dining room could have seated 20. Instead, it seated 2, her and Lucian, separated by 8 feet of polished mahogany. Candles flickered, crystal gleamed. The food was probably incredible, but Sienna could barely taste it. Lucian ate in silence, cutting his steak with surgical precision. He'd changed into a black sweater and dark slacks, somehow looking both casual and absolutely in control. "You don't have to do this every night," Sienna said finally. He glanced up. "Do what?" "Eat with me. I know this is fake. You don't have to pretend when no one's watching." "We eat together," Lucian said. "It's in the contract, page 9, section 4. Regular meals maintain the appearance of normalcy for the household staff." "The staff knows this is fake?" "No, and they won't. To everyone in this house, we are a married couple. You will behave accordingly." Sienna set down her fork. "So what? We're method acting our way through 18 months? If that's how you need to think of it." "How do you think of it?" Lucian took a sip of wine. "I think of it as a necessary arrangement that benefits us both, nothing more." "Right, because you're a robot who doesn't feel anything." Something flickered in his expression, there and gone in a second. "Feelings are liabilities, Miss Vale. I learned that a long time ago." "Mrs. Moretti," Sienna corrected. "If we're playing house for the staff, you should probably use the right name." His jaw tightened, then, quietly, "Mrs. Moretti." The name sounded different in his voice, possessive, real. Sienna looked away. "When's the gala?" "Friday, 8 p.m. We'll arrive together, stay for 3 hours, and leave together. You'll smile, make small talk, and let people think you're madly in love with me." "That's going to be a stretch." "You'd be surprised what people believe when they want to." "And what do they want to believe about us?" Lucian leaned back in his chair. "That I've finally settled down. That marriage has softened me. That I'm stable, committed, and no longer a threat to their little power plays." He smiled, and it was the coldest thing Sienna had ever seen. "They'll be wrong, of course. But by the time they figure that out, it won't matter." "What happens in 18 months? You get your money, I get my empire secured, we both walk away." "Just like that." "Just like that." Sienna studied him across the table. "You really think this is going to work? That we can just pretend for a year and a half and then go back to being strangers?" "I don't think, Mrs. Moretti. I plan, and my plans always work." "Must be nice being that arrogant." "It's not arrogance if it's accurate." Despite herself, Sienna almost smiled. "You know what? I think I'm starting to understand why you needed to buy a wife. Your personality probably isn't doing you any favors." Lucian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. "Careful, you're still on probation." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the contract doesn't fully execute until Friday. If you embarrass me at the gala, if you can't play the role convincingly, if you give me any reason to doubt this arrangement." He let the sentence hang. "You'll what? Throw me out?" "I'll terminate the agreement. You'll get nothing." The threat landed like a slap. Sienna's hands clenched under the table. "Then I guess I better be convincing." "I guess you better." They finished the meal in silence. Sienna spent the next 3 days learning to be Mrs. Lucian Moretti. There were etiquette lessons from a woman named Margot who spoke in clipped tones and corrected Sienna's posture every 5 minutes. There were wardrobe consultations with a stylist named Jean-Paul who brought racks of designer dresses and looked personally offended by Sienna's existing closet. There were briefings from Lucian's assistant, a sharp-eyed man named David who gave her dossiers on everyone who would be at the gala. Their names, their businesses, their feuds, their weaknesses. "You need to know who's dangerous," David said, tapping a photo of a silver-haired man with cold eyes. "That's Victor Castellano. He and Mr. Moretti have been at war for years. If he approaches you, be polite but distant. Don't engage in conversation." "What kind of war?" David's smile was thin. "The kind that doesn't end well for anyone." Sienna saw Lucian only at dinner, and even then, he barely spoke. He'd ask about her day, listen to her stilted responses, and then retreat into silence. It was like living with a ghost. A very rich, very dangerous ghost. On Thursday night, the dress arrived. It was delivered in a black box with tissue paper and a scent that probably cost more than her old rent. Sienna lifted it out carefully, midnight blue silk cut to fit like a second skin, with a neckline that was just this side of scandalous. She tried it on in front of the mirror. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Lucian probably had her measurements down to the millimeter. She looked like someone else, someone elegant, someone who belonged in Lucian Moretti's world. Someone who wasn't her. There was a knock at her door. "Come in," Sienna called. Lucian stepped inside and stopped. His eyes traveled over her, slow and deliberate, not leering, assessing. But there was something in his expression that made her skin feel too warm. "It fits," he said. "Did you doubt it would?" "No." He crossed the room, stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "Turn around," Sienna bristled. "I'm not a doll. Turn around," he repeated. "I need to see the full effect." She turned, mostly because arguing seemed exhausting. When she faced him again, his expression was unreadable. "You'll do," Lucian said. "High praise. You look like you belong. That's all that matters." He held out a small velvet box. "You'll need this." Sienna opened it. Inside was a ring, a massive diamond set in platinum, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like trapped stars. Her breath caught. "This is your wedding ring. You should have been wearing it already, but I wanted to make sure the dress was right first. The ring needs to match." He took it from the box and reached for her left hand. Sienna let him, because what else could she do? His fingers were warm, careful. He slid the ring onto her finger slowly, and for a second neither of them moved. "Perfect fit," Lucian said quietly. Sienna looked down at the ring. It felt heavy, foreign. "How much did this cost?" "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." "I want an answer to this one." "2 million, give or take." Her stomach dropped. "That's insane." "That's expected. People will look at that ring and know exactly what you are." "And what's that?" Lucian's eyes met hers. "Mine." The word hung between them, dangerous and electric. Sienna pulled her hand back. "This is just for show." "Of course. I'm not actually yours." "Of course not." But the way he was looking at her said something different, something that made her heart beat too fast. "Tomorrow night," Lucian said, stepping back. 8 p.m. Don't be late." He left before she could respond. Sienna looked down at the ring on her finger, glittering like a beautiful lie, and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. The gala was exactly as terrible as she'd imagined. The venue was a historic mansion converted into an event space, dripping with old money and older grudges. Chandeliers, string quartets, people in tuxedos and gowns that cost more than cars. Lucian's hand was on the small of her back as they entered, warm and possessive through the thin silk of her dress. Every eye in the room turned to look at them. "Smile," he murmured near her ear. Sienna smiled. It felt like baring teeth. They moved through the crowd like royalty, Lucian introducing her to a parade of faces she'd never remember. Everyone was polite. Everyone was curious. Everyone wanted to know where she'd come from, how they'd met, when the wedding had been. Lucian lied smoothly, effortlessly. "We met through mutual friends. I knew immediately she was the one. The wedding was small. We wanted something private." Sienna played along, adding details that made the story sound real. She laughed at the right moments, touched his arm at the right times, let him keep his hand on her waist like it belonged there. It was exhausting. "You're doing well," Lucian said during a rare moment alone. "I'm a good actress." Apparently. They were standing near the bar when a man approached, tall, silver-haired, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sienna recognized him from the dossier. Victor Castellano. "Lucian," Victor said warmly, too warmly. "I heard the rumors, but I didn't believe them. You, married? I thought you were too smart for that." Lucian's expression didn't change. "Victor, still trying to buy your way into legitimacy, I see." Victor's smile sharpened. "And you must be the bride. Sienna, is it?" "Mrs. Moretti," Sienna corrected, letting ice creep into her voice. "Of course. Forgive me." Victor's eyes traveled over her, slow and deliberate. "You're quite beautiful. I have to wonder what a woman like you sees in a man like Lucian." "Excuse me?" Sienna said. Lucian's hand tightened on her waist, a warning. Victor leaned in, his voice dropping. "I mean, everyone knows what he is, what he's done, the people he's hurt. Doesn't that bother you?" Sienna felt Lucian go very still beside her. She could play it safe, smile and deflect, walk away. Instead, she stepped closer to Victor, her voice sweet and razor-sharp. You know what bothers me, Mr. Castellano? Men who think they can intimidate women by pretending to care about their well-being. My husband is exactly who I thought he was when I married him. The question is, are you? Victor's smile vanished. Lucien's hand moved to her hip, possessive, pleased. Enjoy the evening, Sienna said, turning away. Lucien guided her toward the terrace, away from the crowd. Once they were outside, alone under the stars, he turned to face her. That was reckless, he said. He was an asshole. He's a dangerous asshole. You don't antagonize dangerous men, Mrs. Moretti. You do. I can afford to. You can't. Sienna crossed her arms. He insulted you. I wasn't going to stand there and let him. Something shifted in Lucien's expression. Why? Why what? Why defend me? This is fake, remember? You don't owe me anything. Sienna met his eyes. Maybe not, but we're in this together for 18 months. If people think they can take shots at you through me, this whole thing falls apart. So yeah, I defended you. Don't read into it. Lucien stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. You're tougher than you look, he said. You have no idea. They stood there on the terrace, the party humming inside, the city lights spreading out below them. For the first time since this arrangement started, Sienna didn't feel like she was drowning. We should get back, Lucien said finally. One more minute, Sienna said. I need a break from all the smiling. Fair enough. They stood in silence, not touching, not speaking, just existing in the same space. And for reasons Sienna couldn't explain, it didn't feel fake anymore. It became a routine after that night, a rhythm neither of them acknowledged but both fell into anyway. Mornings, Sienna would find coffee already made in the kitchen, still hot, with a note in Lucien's sharp handwriting, meeting until 2, dinner at 8, or flying to Chicago. Back tomorrow. Never anything personal, just logistics. But he always left the coffee. She started exploring the estate during his absences. The place was massive, labyrinthine. Rooms that hadn't been opened in years. A library with first editions collecting dust. A pool house that looked like it had never seen a swimmer. Everything was expensive, maintained, and utterly lifeless. It reminded her of Lucien himself. One afternoon, she found herself in what must have been a sitting room once. Good bones, terrible execution. Heavy drapes blocked the light. The furniture was dark and oppressive. It felt like a room where joy went to die. This is depressing, she muttered to herself. Then fix it. Sienna spun around. Lucien stood in the doorway, jacket slung over one shoulder, tie loosened. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes she hadn't noticed before. I thought you were in meetings all day, she said. They ended early. He stepped into the room, glanced around. You don't like it? It's a mausoleum. Who designed this place? A funeral director? His mouth twitched, almost a smile. My mother, actually. Sienna's stomach dropped. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't... She's not dead, just expensive and miserable. The two aren't mutually exclusive. He walked to the windows, pulled back the drapes. Sunlight poured in, revealing how much worse the room actually was. She redecorated the entire estate 20 years ago. Haven't touched it since. Why not? Lucien shrugged. Didn't care enough to bother. Sienna looked around the room again, seeing it differently now. Not just bad design, but neglect. Intentional emptiness. Can I change it? He turned to look at her. What? The room. Can I redesign it? It's kind of what I do. Or did before... She stopped herself. I could make it better, make the whole place better, honestly. It's like living in a very expensive coffin right now. Lucien studied her for a long moment. You want to redesign my house. I want to redesign our house. For the next 18 months, anyway. People are going to visit eventually, right? Dinners, parties, whatever rich people do. They should see a home, not a mausoleum. And what do you get out of it? Something to do besides memorizing dossiers and practicing my fake smile. I'm going insane with boredom, Lucien. He considered this, then nodded once. Fine. Budget is unlimited. Do whatever you want. Just stay out of my office and my bedroom. Deal. He started to leave, then paused at the door. Sienna? Yeah? Make it better. It wasn't a command, it was almost a request. After he left, Sienna stood in that terrible room and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Purpose. She threw herself into the work with the kind of intensity that used to drive Marcus crazy. Measurements, sketches, fabric swatches. She called suppliers, negotiated with contractors, pulled together a vision that would transform the estate from a showpiece into something that felt like people actually lived there. Lucian stayed out of her way mostly. He'd come home late, find her surrounded by samples and blueprints in the sitting room, and just watch her work, never commenting, never interfering. Just there, a silent presence that should have been unsettling but somehow wasn't. "You don't have to supervise," Sienna said one night, not looking up from her sketches. "I'm not supervising, I'm observing." "That's literally the same thing." "It's not." He moved closer, looked over her shoulder at the design. "What's this?" "The main living room. I'm opening up the space, bringing in natural light, replacing all this dark wood with something that doesn't scream Gothic horror." "My mother will hate it." "Good thing she doesn't live here," Lucian laughed. Actually laughed. It was brief, rough, like he was out of practice, but it was real. Sienna looked up at him. "Did you just laugh?" "Don't let it go to your head. Too late. I'm having it bronzed." He shook his head, but the corner of his mouth was still curved. "You're strange, Mrs. Moretti." "You're one to talk, Mr. Moretti." Their eyes met, and for a second something passed between them, something that felt dangerously close to actual friendship. Lucian cleared his throat, stepped back. "I have calls to make. Don't stay up too late." "Yes, dear," Sienna said, heavy on the sarcasm. He left, but she could have sworn she heard him laugh again in the hallway. The first major change was the living room. Sienna had the contractors rip out the heavy drapes, refinish the floors, paint the walls a warm cream instead of oppressive burgundy. She brought in new furniture, clean lines, comfortable but elegant. Art that wasn't stuffy portraits of dead people. Plants, actual living things, strategically placed to soften the space. When it was finished, she found Lucian in his office. "It's done," she said from the doorway. He looked up from his laptop. "What is?" "The living room. Come see." He followed her downstairs, and when they reached the renovated space, he stopped in the doorway. Just stopped. Stared. "Well?" Sienna asked, suddenly nervous. "Do you hate it?" Lucian walked into the room slowly, taking it in. The light, the warmth, the way it felt like a space where people could actually breathe. He paused. "It doesn't look like my house." Sienna's heart sank. "I can change it back. I saved everything. The furniture is in storage." "No." He turned to face her. "I mean, it doesn't look like my house used to. It looks better, like a place someone might actually want to live." Relief flooded through her. "Yeah?" "Yeah." He ran a hand along the back of the new sofa, testing the fabric. "How much did this cost?" "You said unlimited budget." "That's not an answer." "Then don't ask questions you don't want answers to." He smiled, actually smiled, throwing my own words back at me. Seemed appropriate. They stood there in the transformed room, and for the first time the house didn't feel quite so much like a prison. "Thank you," Lucian said quietly. Sienna blinked. "For what?" "For this. For making it less—" He gestured vaguely. "Empty." "You're welcome." That night at dinner, Lucian actually asked about her work. Real questions. How she chose colors, what made a space feel cohesive, where she learned to see potential in things that looked hopeless. Sienna answered, found herself talking more than she had in weeks. About Parsons, about her first terrible apartment in New York, about the client who'd given her her first real break. "What happened to her?" Lucian asked. "The client. Marcus happened." Sienna's voice went flat. "He convinced her I was overcharging, stealing from the budget. She fired me, demanded a refund, and when I couldn't pay because Marcus had already taken the money, she sued. That's where most of my debt came from. Her lawsuit and 3 others just like it." Lucian's expression darkened. "Where is he now?" "Marcus." "I don't know. Vanished. Probably spending my money somewhere tropical." "Give me his full name." "Why?" "Because I want it." There was something in his voice that made Sienna's skin prickle. "Lucian, what are you going to do?" Nothing you need to worry about. He took a sip of wine. His name. Marcus Chen. But seriously, just let it go. He's not worth... His name is all I need. They finished dinner in silence, but Sienna couldn't shake the feeling she'd just set something in motion. Something she didn't fully understand. 3 days later, David appeared at breakfast with a tablet. Mr. Moretti wanted you to see this, he said, setting it in front of Sienna. She looked at the screen. It was a news article. Former designer arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Marcus's face stared back at her from the photo. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes wide, being led away in handcuffs. What? Sienna breathed. Apparently someone tipped off the authorities about offshore accounts in his name, David said blandly, containing funds stolen from multiple victims. The investigation was quite thorough. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. Sienna's hands were shaking. Lucien did this. Mr. Moretti was in meetings all day yesterday. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. David's expression was perfectly neutral. Will there be anything else? No, thank you. After David left, Sienna sat there staring at Marcus's face on the screen. All the anger, all the betrayal, all the nights she'd spent furious and helpless, and Lucien had fixed it in 72 hours. She found him in his office, door open, on a phone call. He saw her, held up one finger. She waited. Handle it, he said into the phone, then hung up. Did David show you? You had him arrested. I had evidence delivered to the appropriate authorities. They made the arrest. That's not... Sienna crossed the room, stopped at his desk. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Lucien leaned back in his chair, studying her. Because he hurt you, because he stole from you and destroyed what you built, because he deserved consequences. This wasn't part of the deal. Consider it a signing bonus. Sienna didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process the fact that Lucien Moretti, who claimed feelings were liabilities, had tracked down her ex-partner and systematically destroyed his life. For her. Thank you, she said finally. You're welcome. I mean it. I've been angry for so long, and I didn't think anyone would... Her voice cracked slightly. Lucien stood, came around the desk, stopped close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Anyone who takes from you answers to me now, he said quietly. That's what the ring means. You're under my protection, all of you. Your business, your reputation, your peace of mind, understand? Sienna nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. Now go finish destroying my mother's decorating choices. You were working on the dining room next, right? Right. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Lucien? Yes? You're not as cold as you pretend to be. His expression shuddered. Don't mistake pragmatism for warmth, Mrs. Moretti. I protect what's mine. That's all this is. But the way he looked at her said something different. The dining room took 2 weeks. Sienna gutted it completely. New wallpaper, new lighting, a table that didn't look like it belonged in a castle. She was directing the installation of a modern chandelier when Lucien came home early. What the hell happened here? He asked, staring at the organized chaos. Progress? Don't worry, it'll be done by tomorrow. He picked his way through drop cloths and paint cans. This is where we eat dinner. Not tonight. I ordered Chinese. It's in the kitchen. You ordered out? Unless you want to eat surrounded by dust and power tools, yeah. They ended up eating takeout at the kitchen island, perched on bar stools like normal people, instead of sitting 8 feet apart at a formal table. This is strange, Lucien said, opening a container of lo mein. What is? This. Eating like this. Like what? Like humans? Sienna grabbed an egg roll. You need to get out more. I get out plenty. To meetings and galas. When's the last time you did something normal? Ordered takeout. Went to a movie? Just existed without 10 layers of security and strategy? Lucien was quiet for a moment. I don't remember. That's sad. That's survival. Sienna studied him in the soft kitchen light. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. There was sauce on his thumb. He looked almost relaxed. What happened to you? She asked quietly. His jaw tightened. What do you mean? Mrs. Harlow said something about you being private. David's always careful about what he tells me. And you move like someone who's expecting an attack. So what happened? That's not part of the arrangement. I know. I'm asking anyway. Lucian set down his chopsticks, stared at the container of food like it held answers. 2 years ago, there was an attempt on my life. A car bomb. I was supposed to die. Instead, I spent 8 months learning to walk again. Surgery after surgery. Physical therapy that felt like torture. And the whole time, my own people whispered that I was weak, that I should step down, that someone stronger should take over. Sienna's chest tightened. That's why you limp sometimes. I don't limp. You favor your left side when you're tired, I've noticed. His eyes snapped to hers. You're observant. I'm a designer. It's my job to see details other people miss. It's not a limp. It's... He stopped. Fine. Yes. Sometimes, when it's cold or I've been on my feet too long. Who did it? The car bomb. Someone who thought they could take what was mine. They were wrong. What happened to them? Lucian's expression went cold. Dangerous. They're not a problem anymore. The way he said it made Sienna's skin prickle. She should be scared, should be horrified. Instead, she just felt sad for him. Is that why you needed the marriage? She asked. To prove you're stable, strong? Partly. A man with a wife, with a stable home life, doesn't look like he's losing control. He looks settled, secure. It buys me time to eliminate the real threats without my own people turning on me. That's incredibly calculated. That's how you stay alive in my world. Sienna reached across the counter, almost touched his hand, then pulled back. For what it's worth, I don't think you're weak. You barely know me. I know you rebuilt yourself after someone tried to kill you. I know you run an empire that terrifies people. I know you tracked down my ex-partner and had him arrested in 3 days. Weak men don't do those things. Lucian looked at her for a long moment. You're dangerous, Mrs. Moretti. How do you figure? Because you make me want to believe you. The air between them felt charged, electric. Sienna cleared her throat, looked away. We should finish eating before it gets cold. Right. They ate in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. And when their fingers accidentally brushed reaching for the same container, neither of them pulled away as quickly as they should have. The weeks blurred together after that. Sienna worked on the house. Lucian worked on his empire. They had dinner together every night, and the conversations got longer, easier. He told her about growing up in this house, about a father who'd been more monster than parent. She told him about art school, about learning to see beauty in broken things. They attended 2 more galas, a charity auction, and a private dinner with some of Lucian's business associates. Each time, the performance got easier. His hand on her back felt natural. Her laugh at his terrible jokes didn't feel forced. They moved together like they'd been doing it for years. People believed them. That was the terrifying part. One night, Sienna woke up at 3 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. She wandered downstairs, found Lucian in the library, reading by lamplight. Can't sleep either? She asked from the doorway. He looked up. Insomnia is an old friend. What are you reading? He showed her the cover. Marcus Aurelius. Meditations. Philosophy at 3 a.m., Sienna said. That tracks. Join me? She should have said no, should have gone back to her room. Instead, she curled up in the chair across from him. Read to me? Lucian's eyebrows rose. Seriously? Your voice is nice, better than lying awake staring at the ceiling. He hesitated, then started reading. His voice was low, measured, and she was right. It was nice, soothing. She let herself drift, not quite sleeping, but not quite awake. When she opened her eyes, dawn was breaking through the windows. Lucian was still in his chair, book closed, watching her. You fell asleep, he said. Sorry, you should have woken me. You looked peaceful. I didn't want to disturb you. Sienna sat up, suddenly aware of how intimate this was. The early morning light, the quiet house, the way he was looking at her. I should go, she said. Sienna, she stopped at the door. Thank you, Lucian said, for staying. Any time. She meant it. The breaking point came on a Thursday. They were having dinner, the newly finished dining room, candles, wine, normal, routine, comfortable. I have to go to New York next week, Lucian said. 3 days of meetings. You'll come with me. Do I have to? We're married. People expect us to travel together. Right, the performance. Something flickered in his expression. Is that what this still feels like to you? A performance? Sienna set down her fork. What else would it be? I don't know. You tell me. Lucian, do you still think about the contract every time we have dinner? Every time I touch you at these events? Every time we talk until midnight about things that have nothing to do with the arrangement? Her heart was pounding. What are you asking me? I'm asking if this still feels fake to you. The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. It's not supposed to be real, Sienna said carefully. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. We have rules, boundaries, 18 months, and then we walk away. That was the deal. Lucian stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The deal, right. Can't forget the deal. Where are you going? Out. I need air. He left before she could respond. Sienna sat in the beautiful dining room she'd created, surrounded by warmth and light, and felt completely cold. Lucian didn't come home that night, or the next morning. Sienna tried to work on the guest rooms, but she couldn't focus, kept checking her phone, kept listening for the sound of his car in the driveway. David found her at lunch, looking worried. Have you heard from Mr. Moretti? He asked. No. Why? He missed 2 meetings this morning. He never misses meetings. Sienna's stomach dropped. Where is he? I don't know. He's not answering his phone. She was pulling out her own phone when it rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Moretti? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your husband was brought in an hour ago. You should come. The phone slipped from her hand. David caught it, listened, went pale. We're on our way. The drive to the hospital was a blur. David drove like he was being chased, weaving through traffic. Sienna sat in the passenger seat, numb. What happened? She kept asking. I don't know. They wouldn't say. When they reached the emergency room, a doctor intercepted them. Mrs. Moretti? Yes. Where is he? What happened? Your husband was in an altercation. Blunt force trauma, possible concussion. We're running tests now, but he's stable. Can I see him? Of course. This way. Lucian was in a private room, sitting up in bed, glaring at a nurse trying to take his blood pressure. I'm fine, he was saying. This is unnecessary. Mr. Moretti, you need to... The nurse stopped when she saw Sienna. Oh, your wife is here. Lucian's eyes met Sienna's across the room. She felt something crack open in her chest. The nurse finished quickly and left. David stayed in the hallway, giving them privacy. Sienna crossed to the bed. Lucian had a cut above his eyebrow, already stitched, bruising on his jaw. His knuckles were raw. What the hell happened? She asked. It's nothing, a disagreement. A disagreement that put you in the hospital. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. Her hands were shaking. She gripped the bed rail to hide it. David said you missed meetings. You never miss meetings. I needed to clear my head. So you got into a fight? I went to a place I used to go. Before all this, someone recognized me, took exception to my presence. It escalated. Sienna stared at him, at the bruises and cuts, at the man who'd walked out on dinner and come back broken. You scared me, she said quietly. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sitting there acting like this is normal, like getting beat up is just part of your Thursday. In my world, it is. Well, it's not in mine, her voice cracked. When they called, when they said you were in the hospital, I thought... She stopped, couldn't finish. Lucian reached for her hand. She let him take it. I'm okay, he said. You're not. You're hurt. And you're lying about why. Sienna, just tell me the truth. For once. Why did you leave? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you're right. This isn't supposed to be real, and I'm starting to forget that. The admission hung between them. Lucian, I know the rules, he continued. I wrote them. Separate rooms. No feelings. 18 months and done. But somewhere between the living room renovation and late-night philosophy and you falling asleep in my library, I stopped seeing this as a contract, and that's dangerous. Sienna's throat was tight. Why is it dangerous? Because I don't do this. I don't let people in. I don't trust. I don't. He stopped. I don't care. But I care about you, and I don't know what to do with that. So you went out and got yourself beaten up? I went out to remind myself who I am, what this is, that you're leaving in, he calculated quickly, 14 months, and I need to be okay with that. What if I'm not? The words were out before Sienna could stop them. Lucian's eyes snapped to hers. What? What if I'm not okay with it either? What if this stopped being fake for me too? The machines beeped. Voices echoed in the hallway. The world kept turning. But in that hospital room, everything stopped. Tell me you mean that, Lucian said roughly. I mean it. I didn't want to. I fought it. But I can't eat dinner with you every night and hear about your life and watch you try so hard to be the cold, calculated man everyone thinks you are when I know you're not. I can't do all of that and not feel something. Sienna? I'm not saying I love you, she said quickly. I'm not there yet. Maybe I won't ever be. But this isn't just a performance anymore. Not for me. Lucian pulled her closer. She ended up sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, his hand still gripping hers. This complicates things, he said. I know. We still have 14 months on the contract. I know. And my world is dangerous. You saw what happened tonight. That's normal for me. I know. Then why? Because I'd rather have 14 complicated months with you than 18 easy ones pretending I don't care. She met his eyes. So what do we do? Lucian was quiet. Then he reached up, cupped her face with his bruised hand. We break the rules. Which ones? All of them. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and real and tasted like blood from his split lip. Sienna kissed him back, one hand fisting in his hospital gown, the other in his hair. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. No going back from this, he said. I know. 14 months, then you're free to leave. I know. But until then, Sienna said, I'm yours, for real this time. His smile was devastating. Good, because I've been yours since you told Victor Castellano to go to hell in a cocktail dress. She laughed. Actually, laughed. You like that? I loved it. You're terrifying when you're angry. You haven't seen anything yet. He kissed her again, softer this time. A promise instead of a question. When David knocked and entered with discharge papers, he took one look at them and sighed. I suppose the separate bedrooms clause is void now? He asked. Completely, Lucian said. Wonderful. I'll have Mrs. Harlow prepare accordingly. He handed over the papers. Try not to end up back here within the week, sir. No promises. After David left, Sienna helped Lucian get dressed. His movements were stiff, painful. She could see him trying to hide it. Let me help, she said. I'm fine. Lucian, let me help. He stopped fighting, let her button his shirt, careful around the bruises. When she was done, he caught her hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For staying, for caring, for being real when everything else in my life is strategy and lies. Sienna kissed him gently. Anytime. They left the hospital together, his arm around her shoulders. Not for show, not for the contract, just because they wanted to. And somewhere in the back of Sienna's mind, a clock started ticking. 14 months. 14 months until the contract ended, and she had to decide if she could walk away from the man she was starting to fall for. But that was a problem for another day. Tonight, she just held on to him and let herself feel something real. The separate bedrooms lasted exactly 3 more nights. Not because they'd planned it that way, but because Lucian showed up at Sienna's door at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep, and she'd pulled him inside without a word. They'd ended up tangled together in her bed, not talking, just existing in the same space. When morning came, he was still there, one arm thrown over her waist, his face pressed into her neck. Mrs. Harlow found them at breakfast looking rumpled and unapologetic. I'll have your things moved to Mrs. Moretti's suite, she said without inflection. Or hers moved to mine, Lucian countered. My room has better light, Sienna said. Mine has a better mattress. That's not... Sienna stopped, realizing they were arguing about mattresses in front of the housekeeper. You know what? Fine. His room. Mrs. Harlow's expression didn't change, but there was something that might have been approval in her eyes. Very good, ma'am. After she left, Sienna turned to Lucien. Your mattress better actually be better. It's a Heston's, cost $30,000. You spent $30,000 on a mattress? I have back problems. Don't judge me. She kissed him instead, quick and easy, like they'd been doing it for years instead of days. I'm judging you a little. Noted. Moving her things took less than an hour. Most of her clothes were still in boxes anyway, waiting for closet space she'd never fully claimed. Lucien's suite was bigger than hers, all dark wood and masculine lines, but she immediately started planning changes. Lighter curtains, better art, maybe some color that wasn't navy or black. I can see you mentally redesigning already, Lucien said from the doorway. Your room is depressing. It's distinguished. It's a cave, a very expensive cave, but still. She turned to face him. Can I fix it? You're going to anyway. True, but I'm asking nicely. He crossed the room, pulled her against him. His hands settled on her hips like they belonged there. Fix whatever you want. Just leave the bed. Because of your $30,000 mattress? Because I like waking up with you in it. Sienna's breath caught. It shouldn't still surprise her when he said things like that. Honest things, real things, but it did. You're getting better at this, she said. At what? Saying what you feel, not hiding behind strategy. Lucien's expression went complicated. Only with you. Everyone else still gets the version they expect. Good. I like being the exception. You are, in every way. He kissed her forehead, then stepped back. I have meetings. David's coordinating the New York trip for next week. We leave Monday. Coordinating how? Hotel suite, restaurant reservations, security detail. Security detail? Sienna. I'm walking around with a target on my back in a city where half my enemies have offices. Yes, security detail. Right. Because this was still his world, still dangerous. The hospital visit wasn't an anomaly, it was a preview. Hey! Lucien tipped her chin up. You okay? Yeah, just remembering who you are. Who I am is someone who'll keep you safe, always. Understand? She nodded, not entirely convinced, but willing to trust him. After he left, Sienna stood in their room now, and tried to reconcile the man who kissed her goodnight with the one who had people beaten up and empires to protect. They were the same person, she knew that, but sometimes the gap between them felt enormous. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Enjoying playing house with Lucien Moretti? Hope you know what you signed up for. Sienna stared at the message, ice forming in her stomach. Another text came through. A photo this time. Her and Lucien leaving the hospital, his arm around her shoulders. Taken from across the street, zoomed in, grainy but clear enough. Someone's always watching. She deleted both messages with shaking hands and told herself it was nothing, just someone trying to scare her, but her hands kept shaking anyway. New York was everything Sienna had forgotten about the city. Noise, crowds, energy that buzzed in your bones. They stayed at the Carlyle, a hotel so expensive it didn't bother with price lists. Their suite had 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a view of Central Park that looked like a postcard. Lucien was different here, sharper, more on edge. He had meetings back to back, disappeared for hours, came back looking exhausted and wound tight. How'd it go? Sienna asked the first night, when he finally returned at 9. Fine. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. He loosened his tie, poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, drank it in one swallow. Sienna watched him from the sofa. You know you can talk to me, right? There's nothing to talk about. Lucien, I'm handling it. That's all you need to know. The distance in his voice stung. This was the version of him everyone else got. Cold, controlled, unreachable. She'd thought she was past that. Thought she'd earned more. Fine, Sienna said, standing. I'm going to bed. Sienna, wait. But she was already in the bedroom, door closed between them. She heard him curse, heard the clink of the bottle, heard him pace. Part of her wanted to go back out there. The other part was tired of being shut out the second things got difficult. The bed dipped an hour later. Lucian's arms came around her in the dark. "I'm sorry," he said against her hair. "For what?" "For shutting you out. It's habit. I'm not used to—" He paused. "Having someone who actually wants to know." Sienna turned in his arms. She could barely see his face in the darkness. "I'm not going to push, but I'm here. When you're ready to talk. I know." He pulled her closer. "The meetings didn't go well. There's resistance to some moves I'm making. People questioning my decisions. It's nothing I can't handle, but it's exhausting." "What kind of moves?" "The kind that require people to trust me, which they're not inclined to do lately." "Because of the attack 2 years ago?" "Because I showed weakness. Because I almost died and it took months to recover. In my world, that's blood in the water. Shark's circle." Sienna pressed her palm to his chest, felt his heartbeat steady and strong. "You're not weak." "Try telling them that." "I will. Point me at your next meeting. I'll set them straight." He laughed quietly. "I believe you would." "Damn right." She kissed him, soft and slow. "You're allowed to have bad days, you know. You don't have to be invincible all the time. In front of you, maybe. Everywhere else, I don't have a choice." It was the most honest thing he'd said all night. They fell asleep tangled together, and when morning came, Lucian was already gone. A note on the pillow. "Meetings until 4. Dinner reservations at 7. Wear something that'll make me forget my own name." Sienna smiled despite herself. The restaurant was the kind of place that required reservations 3 months in advance and had a wine list longer than most novels. Sienna wore black, simple, elegant, the kind of dress that cost more than her first car. Lucian wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe used to. They looked like they belonged together. Halfway through dinner, a man approached their table. Tall, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lucian Moretti," the man said. "Heard you were in town." Lucian's expression went carefully blank. "Richard, surprised you're showing your face in public." "Why wouldn't I be?" Richard's eyes slid to Sienna. "And this must be the wife everyone's talking about. Sienna Vale, right? Or should I say Moretti now?" "Mrs. Moretti works fine," Sienna said coolly. "Of course. Forgive me." Richard pulled up a chair without being invited, sat down like he owned the place. "I have to say, Lucian, I was surprised by the news. You always struck me as the bachelor type." "People change," Lucian said. "Do they? Or do they just get desperate?" The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. "Careful, Richard," Lucian said softly. "I'm just saying it's convenient timing. You marry a beautiful woman right when questions are being raised about your stability, your commitment, your ability to lead." Richard leaned back, all false concern. "Makes a man wonder what's real and what's strategy." Sienna felt Lucian go very still beside her, felt the violence coiling beneath his controlled exterior. She set down her wine glass with deliberate care. "You know what I think is interesting, Richard?" "What's that?" "Men like you, men who measure everything in terms of strategy and weakness, because you can't imagine anyone doing anything for real reasons. It must be exhausting, living like that, never trusting anything, never believing in anything genuine." Richard's smile thinned. "I'm a realist, Mrs. Moretti. You're a cynic, there's a difference." She leaned forward. "My husband doesn't owe you explanations. He doesn't owe you proof. And he certainly doesn't owe you the satisfaction of defending himself to someone who'd stab him in the back the second it was profitable." "I see he's taught you well." "He didn't teach me anything. This is all me." Sienna smiled, sharp and cold. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we were having a private dinner. I'm sure you understand." Richard stood slowly. "Of course. Enjoy your evening." He looked at Lucian. "We'll talk soon." "No," Lucian said. "We won't." After Richard left, Sienna picked up her fork like nothing had happened, but her hands were shaking slightly. Lucian caught one of them. "That was reckless. He was insulting you. He was baiting me. And you took it." "Someone had to. You were about to put him through the table." Lucian's mouth curved. "How did you know? Your jaw does this thing when you're furious. Right here." She touched the hinge of his jaw. "Tenses up. I've been watching. Dangerous habit. Someone has to keep you from committing murder in expensive restaurants." He brought her hand to his mouth, kissed her knuckles. What did I do to deserve you? Offered me $5 million and a fake marriage. Best investment I ever made. They finished dinner, but the encounter with Richard had shifted something, made the danger feel more immediate, more real. In the car back to the hotel, Lucian was quiet. Talk to me, Sienna said. Richard's not wrong. People are questioning us, questioning whether this is real. Does it matter what they think? In my world? Yes. Perception is everything. If they think this is fake, if they think I'm weak enough to need a contract wife to shore up my image, then the whole thing falls apart. So we prove them wrong. How? Sienna turned to face him in the back seat of the town car. We stop holding back. Stop being careful. We make them believe it because it is real. No more separate appearances at events. No more measured touches. We act like what we are. Two people who actually give a damn about each other. Lucian studied her in the passing streetlights. That exposes you, makes you a bigger target. I'm already a target. Those texts I got last week? Someone photographed us at the hospital. Someone's watching. So either we hide and look fake, or we commit and look real. Your choice. What texts? His voice went deadly quiet. Sienna realized her mistake. It's nothing. Just someone trying to scare me. Show me. Lucian, show me. Now. She pulled out her phone, showed him the deleted messages she'd screenshotted, watched his expression go from concern to fury. Why didn't you tell me, he asked. Because I knew you'd react like this, all tense and murderous. Someone threatened you, that's not nothing. They didn't threaten me, they just… She paused. Okay, it was threatening, but I handled it. By deleting it and saying nothing? By not letting it scare me into hiding. Lucian looked at the photos again, jaw tight. I'll have David trace the number. It was a burner, I already tried. Then I'll find another way. He pulled her against him, fierce and protective. No one touches you. No one threatens you. No one even looks at you wrong without answering to me. You can't protect me from everything. Watch me. The car pulled up to the hotel. They rode the elevator in tense silence, but the second they were inside the suite, Lucian had her against the wall, kissing her like he was trying to prove something. To himself. To her. To whoever was watching. Sienna kissed him back just as hard, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. I'm not fragile, she said between kisses. I know, and I'm not going anywhere. You better not. They made it to the bedroom eventually. Clothes ended up on the floor. The $30,000 mattress proved worth every penny. Afterward, Lucian held her like she might disappear. Face buried in her hair, arms wrapped tight around her waist. I'm terrified of losing you, he said into the darkness. Sienna's chest ached. You won't. You don't know that. My world destroys things, beautiful things. I've seen it happen. I'm tougher than I look. I know, but that doesn't stop me from being scared. He pulled back enough to see her face. I've never had something worth protecting before. Not like this. And I don't know how to do it without what? Without becoming the monster they think I am. Sienna cupped his face, made him look at her. You're not a monster. You're a man doing what he has to do to survive in an impossible world. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Monsters don't care who they hurt. You care. Maybe too much. I care about you. Everyone else can burn. That's very romantic in a deeply disturbing way. He almost smiled. That's me, romantic and disturbing. My favorite combination. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for a few hours at least, the world outside couldn't touch them. The next morning brought complications. David called at 7, voice tight. We have a problem. Lucian was on the phone for an hour. Sienna couldn't hear the details, but she could read his body language, the rigid shoulders, the sharp gestures, the way he paced like a caged animal. When he finally hung up, his expression was grim. What happened? Sienna asked. Someone leaked details of a deal I've been working on for months. Sensitive details. The kind that could only come from someone inside my organization. You have a leak. I have a traitor. He grabbed his jacket. I have to go. Meetings I can't avoid. Can I come? No. Too dangerous. Lucian. Please. He stopped at the door, turned back. Just stay here. Stay safe. I'll be back by tonight. He left before she could argue. Sienna spent the day trying not to climb the walls. She ordered room service she didn't eat, worked on design plans she couldn't focus on, checked her phone every 5 minutes. At 3, David called. "Mrs. Moretti, I need you to pack. We're moving you to a different location." Her stomach dropped. Why? There's been a credible threat. Nothing imminent, but Mr. Moretti wants you somewhere more secure. Where is he? Still in meetings. He'll meet you at the new location. David, what's going on? Just pack, please. A car will be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Sienna's hands were shaking as she threw clothes into a suitcase. A credible threat, whatever that meant. Nothing about this felt right. The knock on the door came exactly 20 minutes later. Sienna checked the peephole. 2 men in suits, earpieces visible. Security. She opened the door. "I'm almost ready." One of the men smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Actually, Mrs. Moretti, you're coming with us now." Something was wrong. These weren't Lucian's men. She could see it in their eyes. Sienna tried to slam the door. The bigger man caught it, shoved it open. She stumbled back, grabbed her phone. The second man caught her wrist, twisted. The phone clattered to the floor. "Don't make this difficult," he said. "Who are you?" "Friends of a friend. Mr. Castellano wants to have a conversation." Victor. Victor Castellano, the man from the first gala. The one who'd insulted Lucian, the one she'd put in his place. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Sienna said. "Yes," the bigger man said. "You are." He grabbed her arm. Sienna fought. She wasn't going quietly. Kicked, clawed, screamed. But they were professionals, and she was just a designer who'd taken one self-defense class in college. They had her zip-tied and out the service entrance in under 3 minutes. The last thing Sienna saw before they shoved a hood over her head was the afternoon sun glinting off Central Park. Then everything went dark. She didn't know how long they drove. Time lost meaning in the darkness. When the car finally stopped and they pulled her out, she could hear water, smell salt air. They were somewhere near the harbor. They half dragged, half walked her into a building that echoed like a warehouse, shoved her into a chair, cut the zip ties, but immediately replaced them with rope, tighter, more professional. When they finally pulled off the hood, Sienna blinked in the sudden light. Victor Castellano sat across from her, relaxed in an expensive chair like this was a business meeting. "Mrs. Moretti," he said pleasantly. "Thank you for joining me." "I didn't exactly have a choice." "No, you didn't, but I appreciate your cooperation anyway." "What do you want?" "To have a conversation, adult to adult, about your husband." "Go to hell," Victor smiled. "You're spirited, I like that. But this will go easier if you cooperate. You kidnapped me. Nothing about this is going to be easy." "Fair point." He leaned forward. "How much do you know about Lucian Moretti's business?" "I know he's more successful than you'll ever be." "Cute. But I'm serious. Do you know what he really does? Who he really is?" "I know exactly who he is." "Do you? Do you know about the shipments that come through his ports? The money that gets cleaned through his real estate deals? The people who disappear when they become inconvenient?" Sienna kept her face blank. "You're describing yourself." "I'm describing your husband, the man you married, the man you're pretending to love." "I'm not pretending." Victor's eyebrows rose. "Really? So this isn't a contract marriage designed to shore up his failing reputation?" Sienna's blood went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, I have sources. I know about the 18-month arrangement. I know about the $5 million payout. I know this is all fake." He stood, walked closer. "But what I don't know is whether you've figured out yet that you're expendable." Lucian would never. Lucian would do anything to protect his empire, including sacrifice a contract wife who served her purpose. Victor crouched in front of her chair. "That's why I'm offering you an out." "An out? Tell me what I want to know about Lucian's operations. Give me something I can use. In return, I'll make sure you disappear safely. New identity, new life, money to start over. You'll never have to look over your shoulder again." "You want me to betray him?" "I want you to save yourself before he decides you're a liability." Sienna stared at Victor, at his confident smile, his expensive suit, his absolute certainty that she'd break. "You know what's funny?" she said. "What?" You spent all this time investigating me, learning about the contract, thinking you found the perfect leverage, but you missed the most important thing. Which is, I'm not doing this for the money anymore. Sienna smiled, cold and certain. So your offer, your threats, your whole speech about saving myself? You can shove it. Victor's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Probably. I'm good at those, but at least this one's mine. He stood, smoothed his jacket. We'll see how brave you feel in a few hours, when Lucian doesn't come. When you realize he's not going to risk everything to save someone he doesn't actually care about. He'll come. You sound very sure. I am. Victor looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Such a waste. He turned to his men. Keep her comfortable. When Moretti calls, and he will call, tell him we're open to negotiations, but make sure he understands the clock is ticking. He left. The men stayed, flanking the door like statues. Sienna sat in the chair, wrists aching, heart pounding, and told herself Victor was wrong. Lucian would come. He had to. Because the alternative, that this was all still just business to him, that she'd fallen for someone who could walk away, was unthinkable. So she sat in that warehouse, tied to a chair, surrounded by enemies, and waited for the man she'd married to prove he was worth believing in. What? 3 hours later, her phone rang. One of the guards answered it, put it on speaker. Mr. Moretti, the guard said. We have something of yours. Lucian's voice came through, cold as winter. If she's hurt, there's nowhere you can hide. She's fine, for now. But Mr. Castellano would like to discuss terms. Put her on. The guard held the phone near Sienna's face. Lucian, she said, keeping her voice steady. Are you hurt? The barely controlled rage in his voice made her chest ache. I'm fine, just bored. Your enemies need better chairs. She heard him exhale. Almost a laugh. That's my girl. Stay strong. I'm coming. I know. The guard pulled the phone back. Mr. Castellano will contact you with details. Don't do anything stupid, Moretti. We're watching. He hung up. Sienna leaned back in the uncomfortable chair and smiled despite everything. That's my girl. He was coming. And when Lucian Moretti came for something that was his, the world had a tendency to burn. Sienna lost track of time in that warehouse. No windows meant no sun, no way to tell if it was day or night. The guards changed shifts twice, maybe 3 times. They brought her water and a sandwich she didn't touch. Her wrists were raw from the rope. Her back ached from sitting in the same position for hours. And she'd never been so tired in her life. But she didn't break. Victor came back once, looking annoyed. Still nothing from your husband, he said, starting to look like he's not as invested as you thought. He's planning, Sienna said. That's what he does. Or he's cutting his losses. You're not exactly irreplaceable, Mrs. Moretti. Women like you are a dime a dozen in his world. Then why go through all this trouble to grab me? Victor's smile faltered. Just for a second, but she saw it. Because you wanted to hurt him, Sienna continued. You wanted to prove he's weak, that he cares about something other than power. And the fact that you had to kidnap me to do it means you're more desperate than he is. Careful, Victor warned. Or what? You'll tie me to a different chair? Threaten me some more? You need me alive and unharmed, or this whole thing falls apart. So forgive me if I'm not shaking in my designer heels. One of the guards laughed. Cut it off quick when Victor glared at him. You're brave, Victor said. I'll give you that. Stupid, but brave. I prefer confident. Same thing, when you're tied to a chair in a warehouse. He left again. The guards went back to ignoring her. Sienna closed her eyes and thought about Lucian, about the way he looked at her across the dinner table, the way he touched her like she was something precious, the way he'd said, "That's my girl" on the phone, like she belonged to him and he'd burn the world to get her back. She believed it, had to believe it. Because if she was wrong, if this was still just business to him, then she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. The door slammed open 4 hours after the phone call. Sienna's eyes snapped open. More guards rushed in, talking in rapid, urgent voices. Something had changed, something bad, judging by the panic in their movements. What's happening? She asked. No one answered. They were too busy checking weapons, making calls, fortifying positions. Then she heard it. Gunfire. Distant but getting closer. Her heart started pounding. One of the guards grabbed her chair, started dragging it toward the back of the warehouse. Move her, now. Where? The front doors exploded inward. Sienna screamed, couldn't help it. The sound was deafening, the blast throwing debris everywhere. Smoke filled the air. Men shouted. More gunfire, close enough to make her ears ring. Through the smoke, a figure emerged. Lucian. He looked like something out of a nightmare, or a dream, depending on who you were. Dark clothes, gun in hand, expression absolutely murderous. Blood on his face from a cut above his eye. He moved through Victor's men like a force of nature, efficient and terrifying. He wasn't alone. At least 6 men with him, professionals, moving in formation. They cleared the warehouse systematically, ruthlessly. Lucian's eyes found Sienna across the chaos. Time stopped. Then he was moving toward her, fast, while his men handled the remaining guards. He dropped to his knees in front of her chair, hands immediately going to the ropes. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, desperate. I'm fine. I'm okay. Did they touch you? Did anyone? No, they just tied me up and talked a lot. Her voice cracked. You came. Of course I came. Did you think I wouldn't? He got the ropes off, pulled her into his arms hard enough to hurt. She didn't care. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have seen this coming, should have protected you better. Lucian, I'm okay. He pulled back, hands framing her face, eyes scanning her like he was memorizing every detail. If they'd hurt you. But they didn't. If they had, I would have killed everyone in this building. Victor, his men, anyone who'd ever worked for him. I would have burned his entire organization to the ground. Sienna believed him, could see it in his eyes, the barely controlled violence, the rage that went beyond rational thought. We need to move, one of his men said. NYPD is going to be here in minutes. Lucian nodded, helped Sienna stand. Her legs almost gave out. He caught her, swept her up into his arms like she weighed nothing. I can walk, she protested. Let me have this. So she did. Let him carry her out of that warehouse, past unconscious guards and bullet holes and the wreckage of the door he'd blown apart. There were 3 black SUVs waiting outside, engines running. Lucian put her in the back of the middle one, slid in beside her. The convoy took off before the doors were fully closed. Where's Victor? Sienna asked. Wasn't there? He's smart enough to keep his distance from the actual dirty work. Lucian's jaw was tight. But he won't be smart enough to hide from me, not after this. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. David was in the front seat, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating something. When he hung up, he turned to look at them. The leak's been identified, he said. Thomas Brennan. He's been feeding information to Castellano for 3 months. We have him secured. Lucian's expression went cold. Where? The estate. Security has him in the West Wing. Good. Lucian looked at Sienna. I need to handle this. Tonight. But first I'm getting you somewhere safe. I want to go home, Sienna said. To the estate. Our home. Sienna, I'm not hiding. If people think I'm scared, if they think you're scrambling to protect me, it makes you look weak. We go home. Together. Like nothing happened. Lucian stared at her. You were just kidnapped. I know, and you just shot up a warehouse to get me back. So now we go home, we have dinner, and we show everyone that we're fine, stronger than ever. That's how this works, right? Perception? A slow smile spread across his face, dangerous and proud. You're terrifying, you know that? I learned from the best. He kissed her, hard and possessive, and in front of David and the driver and anyone else who might be watching. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with something that wasn't just relief. When this is over, he said quietly, when I've dealt with everyone who thought they could touch you, I'm never letting you out of my sight again. That's going to make bathroom trips awkward. He laughed, actually laughed, despite everything. You're impossible. You like it. I love it. He paused. I love you. Sienna's breath caught. They'd been dancing around it for weeks, both feeling it but neither saying it. Too risky, too real. But sitting in the back of an SUV, fleeing a crime scene, covered in dust and fear, that's when he chose to say it. You have terrible timing, she said. I have perfect timing. You're alive, I'm alive, everything else is just details. I love you too, Sienna said, even though you're absolutely insane. especially because I'm insane. She kissed him again, softer this time. A promise instead of desperation. They made it to the private airfield 40 minutes later. Lucian's jet was fueled and ready. They were in the air before the NYPD could connect them to the warehouse. The flight back was quiet. Lucian spent most of it on the phone, voice low and lethal, coordinating something Sienna didn't want to know the details of. She curled up in one of the leather seats, exhausted down to her bones. When they landed, it was almost midnight. Vincent was waiting with the car. He took one look at Sienna, and his expression softened fractionally. "Good to see you safe, Mrs. Moretti," he said. "Thanks, Vincent." The estate looked the same as always. Warm lights, manicured grounds, home. Mrs. Harlow was waiting at the door, face pale. "Mrs. Moretti?" she said, voice shaking slightly. "Thank goodness." "I'm fine," Sienna assured her. "You'll want a bath, fresh clothes. I'll have something sent to your room." "Thank you." Lucian's hand was on her back as they climbed the stairs. Protective. Possessive. Like he was afraid she'd disappear if he stopped touching her. "I need to deal with Thomas," he said when they reached their room. "It won't take long." "What are you going to do to him?" Lucian's expression was unreadable. "What needs to be done?" "Lucian, he betrayed me. He put you in danger. There are consequences for that. You're going to kill him. I'm going to make sure he never betrays anyone again. The method is still under consideration." Sienna should have been horrified, should have argued, should have asked him not to become the monster everyone thought he was. Instead, she just nodded. "Okay." He looked surprised. "Okay?" "He almost got me killed, so yeah. Okay." She touched his face, felt the tension in his jaw. "Just come back to me when it's done." "Always." He kissed her forehead and left. Sienna took the bath Mrs. Harlow had prepared, scrubbed the warehouse off her skin, changed into clean clothes, and then she sat on the edge of their bed and waited. An hour later, Lucian returned. His knuckles were bruised. There was blood on his shirt that she was pretty sure wasn't his. "Is it done?" she asked. "It's done." He started stripping off his clothes, mechanical and distant. "Thomas won't be a problem anymore. Neither will 3 of Castellano's key people. The message has been sent." "What message?" "That anyone who touches you dies. Slowly." He stepped into the shower, turned on the water. Steam filled the bathroom. Sienna followed him, watched him wash the blood away, watched the evidence of violence circle the drain. "Are you okay?" she asked. He looked at her through the glass door. "I should be asking you that." "I asked first." Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I was terrified. When David told me you were taken, when I realized Victor had you, I've never been that scared in my life. Not when they bombed my car. Not during any of the wars I've fought. Nothing compared to thinking I might lose you." Sienna opened the shower door, stepped inside fully clothed. Lucian's eyes widened. "What are you—" She wrapped her arms around him, held him under the spray. "I'm here, I'm okay, we're okay." His arms came around her, crushing her against him. She felt him shaking. This man who'd just executed traitors and sent messages written in blood. He was shaking. "I can't lose you," he said into her wet hair. "I know the contract says 18 months. I know you're supposed to walk away, but I can't. I can't do this without you anymore." "Then don't." She pulled back, looked up at him. "Don't do it without me. You said you weren't ready to love me. I was wrong. I think I started loving you the night you gave me your coat at the first gala because the terrace was cold. Or maybe when you tracked down Marcus. Or maybe the first time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes. I don't know when it happened, but it did." Lucian kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. They ended up on the bathroom floor, both soaking wet, kissing like the world was ending. "The contract," Lucian said between kisses. "We should—" "Burn it. Void it. I don't care." Sienna pulled back enough to see his face. "I don't want your money, Lucian. I don't need $5 million or a business relaunch or any of it. I just want you. You can have both. I don't need both." "I want to give you both. I want to give you everything." His hands cupped her face. "Marry me. For real this time. No contract, no expiration date, just us. We're already married. That was business. He paused. This is me asking you to be my wife because I love you. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you made this empty house a home. And you made me remember what it feels like to be human. Sienna's eyes burned. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Obviously, yes. You think I'd survive getting kidnapped for you just to say no? He laughed, kissed her again. They stayed on the bathroom floor until the water ran cold, making promises that had nothing to do with contracts and everything to do with choice. The next morning, Lucian called his lawyer. Tear up the contract, he said. All of it. The payments, the timeline, the termination clause. I want it voided completely. Sienna sat next to him on the bed, wearing one of his shirts, watching him dismantle the arrangement that had brought them together. Are you sure about this, Mr. Moretti? The lawyer asked. The financial implications, I don't care. Void it. Today. Very well. I'll have the paperwork ready by this afternoon. After he hung up, Lucian turned to Sienna. Second thoughts? None. You? Not even a little. He pulled her into his lap. Although this means you're not getting $5 million. Tragic. However will I survive? I could still give it to you. Lucian, I don't want your money. I want you. The actual you, not the contract version. He kissed her temple. You have me. All of me. For as long as you'll put up with the chaos. That's a long time. Good. David knocked on the door, entered without waiting for permission. Sir, we have a situation. Lucian's expression hardened. What kind of situation? Victor Castellano has requested a meeting. Says he wants to discuss terms. Terms for what? A truce. He knows you took out 3 of his key people last night. He's concerned about escalation. Lucian looked at Sienna. What do you think? You're asking me? You're the one he kidnapped. You have a say in this. Sienna considered it. Can you trust him to honor a truce? Not even a little. But I can use a meeting to send a clearer message. Then meet with him. But I'm coming. Absolutely not. He took me to prove you're weak. We show up together. We show him he failed. I'm coming, Lucian. Don't argue. Lucian looked at David. Thoughts? She has a point. Showing unity, especially after yesterday, would be a power move. Or it puts her in danger again. Then bring more security, Sienna said. But I'm not hiding. Not from him. Not from anyone. Lucian studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fine. But you stay by my side the entire time. And if anything feels wrong, you leave. Immediately. Understood? Understood. The meeting was set for that evening. Neutral ground. A private room at an exclusive restaurant. Lucian brought 6 security people. Victor brought 5. They faced each other across a table that cost more than most people's cars, and the air was electric with violence. Moretti, Victor said. You look well. Marriage agrees with you. Cut the pleasantries, Victor. You wanted a meeting. Here we are. I wanted to propose a ceasefire. Last night's events were unfortunate. My people acted without full authorization. I'm willing to call it even if you are. Even, Lucian repeated flatly. You kidnapped my wife, tied her to a chair, threatened her, and you think we're even because I killed 3 of your people. 4, actually. Thomas Brennan was mine too. Good to know. I'll send flowers to the funerals. Victor's smile thinned. You've made your point. You're not weak. You're willing to go to war to protect what's yours. Message received. But continuing this fight benefits neither of us. You have enemies that aren't me. So do I. Why not focus our energy there? Sienna watched Lucian consider it, watched him calculate angles and strategies. Here's my counter-proposal, Lucian said. You stay out of my business. I stay out of yours. We maintain professional distance. But if you or anyone working for you ever comes near my wife again, there won't be a truce. There won't be a negotiation. There will just be the systematic destruction of everything you've built. Clear? Victor's expression hardened. Crystal. Good. Lucian stood. We're done here. They left without looking back. Sienna felt Victor's eyes on her the whole way out, but she kept her head high and her hand in Lucian's. In the car, she exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. That went better than expected, she said. He'll honor it for now. Once his organization rebuilds, he'll come at me again, but more carefully next time. So this isn't over. In my world, it's never over. There's always another threat, another enemy, another fight. He looked at her. Last chance to walk away. I'll give you everything in the contract, everything I promised, and you can disappear. Build a life somewhere safe. Are you trying to get rid of me? I'm trying to give you an out, before you're in too deep. Sienna laughed. Lucian, I was kidnapped yesterday and I'm still here. I think I'm already in too deep. That's what I'm worried about. Don't be. I know what I signed up for. The real version, not the contract version. And I'm staying. He pulled her against him, kissed the top of her head. You're insane. Yep, perfect match for you. When they got home, Mrs. Harlow had prepared dinner. They ate in their newly renovated dining room, talking about mundane things. The guest bedroom redesign, a charity event next month, whether to finally get rid of the terrible curtains in the East Wing. Normal things. Domestic things. Things that felt impossible 24 hours ago. After dinner, they ended up in the library, Lucian reading, Sienna sketching design ideas. The fire crackled, rain started pattering against the windows. I talked to my lawyer about something else, Lucian said, not looking up from his book. What? A prenup, for when we renew our vows properly. Sienna set down her pencil. A prenup. I know the contract is void, but I want to make sure you're protected. If something happens to me, if this world finally catches up with me, you'll be taken care of. The estate, the assets, everything. It'll be yours. I don't want to talk about you dying. We need to. My life is dangerous. You know that now. And I need to know that if something happens, you'll be okay. Sienna moved to his chair, curled up in his lap. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can't know that. I can believe it, and I do. She pressed her hand over his heart, felt it beating strong and steady. You're not going anywhere. You're too stubborn. That's not how it works. It's how I'm choosing to believe it works. She kissed him softly. But fine. Draft your prenup. Protect me in every way you can think of. Just promise me you'll actually be here to see me enjoy it. I promise I'll try. Good enough? They stayed like that until the fire burned low and the rain turned to a downpour. Then Lucian carried her upstairs, laid her on their expensive mattress, and showed her exactly how much he loved her without saying a single word. Later, in the dark, Sienna traced the scars on his back from the car bomb, followed the map of violence that had made him who he was. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. This life, this world, every day, he admitted. But I regret the idea of leaving it and losing you more. You won't lose me. Promise? Promise. It was a promise she intended to keep, no matter how many Victor Castellanos came at them, no matter how dangerous his world got. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. And Sienna Vale didn't make choices lightly. Outside, the storm raged, but inside their room, in the house she'd transformed from a mausoleum into a home, they were safe. For now, that was enough. The months that followed were not easy. Anyone who thought love conquered all had never tried loving someone whose life came with a body count and enemies who didn't sleep. But they were real. That was what mattered. Sienna finished the estate renovations in November. Every room transformed, every dark corner filled with light. The house that had felt like a tomb now felt like a place where people actually lived, laughed, fought, made up, loved. Mrs. Harlow walked through the finished result with something that might have been tears in her eyes. It's beautiful, Mrs. Moretti, she said quietly. Mr. Moretti's mother would have hated it. Good, Sienna said. That's what makes it perfect. Lucian's reaction was quieter. He stood in the main hall, looking at the space Sienna had created, and didn't say anything for a long time. You don't like it, Sienna said, suddenly nervous. I love it. His voice was rough. I love that you did this, that you took the worst parts of my past and just erased them, made something better. That's what designers do. We see potential in broken things. He looked at her. Is that what you saw in me? Potential? No. I saw someone who was already whole, just buried under a lot of expensive, terrible wallpaper. He kissed her there in the entrance hall, in the house she'd remade, and Sienna thought that maybe this was what home actually felt like. Not a place, a person. Her business relaunched in December. Not with Lucian's money, she'd refused it, wanted to do it herself, but with clients she'd earned through word of mouth. People who'd seen what she'd done to the Moretti estate and wanted the same magic for their own spaces. She worked from a studio Lucian had built for her in the East Wing. Light-filled, organized, hers. He'd surprise her there sometimes, bringing coffee or lunch, or just himself when he needed a break from whatever dark business he was handling. "You know you're supposed to knock," Sienna said one afternoon, not looking up from her fabric samples. "It's my house. It's our house, and I'm working." "So am I. I'm working on distracting you." She looked up. He was leaning in the doorway, tie loose, looking exhausted but trying to hide it. "Long day?" "You could say that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." He came into the studio, looked at her designs. "What's this?" "A couple in Brooklyn. They want their brownstone updated, but they're scared of losing the character. So I'm trying to find the balance." "You're good at that. Balance." "Sometimes." She set down the samples. "How bad was it today?" Lucian was quiet for a moment. Victor made another move, small, annoying, testing boundaries, saying, "What kind of move?" "He bought out one of my shipping contracts. Cost him twice what it was worth just to mess with me." "So what are you going to do?" "I already did it. Bought out 3 of his. Cost me 4 times what they were worth. But the message is clear." He rubbed his face. "This is my life, Sienna. Endless petty wars with people who have too much money and not enough sense. Sounds exhausting." "It is." She stood, went to him, put her hands on his chest. "So stop." He blinked. "What? Stop?" "Walk away. You have enough money to live 10 lifetimes. You don't need this anymore." "It's not about need. It's about—" He stopped. "About what? Power? Control? Proving something to people who tried to kill you?" She held his gaze. "You've already proven it, Lucian. You rebuilt your empire. You survived. You won. What are you still fighting for?" "I don't know how to not fight." "Then learn. With me. We'll figure it out together." He looked at her like she'd suggested they move to Mars. "You want me to just retire from everything?" "I want you to be happy, and I don't think buying shipping contracts to spite Victor Castellano is making you happy." "What would I even do?" "Whatever you want. Sleep past 6 a.m. for once. Travel somewhere that doesn't require a security detail. Spend a whole day doing nothing but reading philosophy in the library. Live, Lucian. Actually live instead of just surviving." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple. It's terrifying, but so is this. At least that kind of terrifying doesn't involve people trying to kill you. I can't just walk away. There are people who depend on me, businesses, employees. So transition out, promote people you trust, sell what you can, keep what you love, but stop carrying all of it like the weight of the world is yours alone." She touched his face. "You're allowed to be happy. You know that, right?" "I'm happy with you." "I know, but I want you to be happy with yourself too, without the empire, without the constant fighting, just you." Lucian pulled her close, held her tight. "I'll think about it." It was more than she'd expected. She'd take it. Tot. Christmas came. They spent it at the estate with just each other, Mrs. Harlow, Vincent, and David. A small celebration, quiet, perfect. Sienna gave Lucian a first edition Marcus Aurelius she'd tracked down through 3 rare book dealers. He gave her a set of antique drafting tools that must have cost a fortune, but felt personal in a way his money usually didn't. "How did you even find these?" she asked, turning the brass instruments over in her hands. "I have my ways. That's not an answer. I called 20 antique dealers in 3 countries and had them shipped overnight. Better?" She kissed him. "Much better." They ate dinner in the dining room she'd redesigned, and for once, Lucian's phone stayed in his pocket. No calls, no emergencies, just them. "This is nice," he said over dessert. "What is?" "This, quiet, normal. I can't remember the last time I had a holiday that felt like this." "Like what?" "Like I actually wanted to be here instead of just going through the motions." Sienna reached across the table, took his hand. "Get used to it." I'm planning on many more quiet, normal holidays. Fair warning. I'll suffer through somehow. That night, lying in bed, Sienna brought up something that had been on her mind for weeks. The contract had an end date, she said. 18 months. We're past that now. By 3 months. I'm aware. So what happens now? Lucian turned to face her in the darkness. What do you want to happen? I want us to make it real. Actually real. Not a voided contract or a fake marriage that turned into something else. I want to stand in front of people who matter and choose you. Publicly. Permanently. Are you proposing to me, Mrs. Moretti? I'm already Mrs. Moretti. I'm proposing we make it mean something beyond paperwork. He was quiet for a moment, then, New Year's Eve. I'll arrange everything. Small ceremony, just people we actually care about. No performance, no strategy, just us. You already had this planned, didn't you? I've had it planned since the night I told you I loved you in the back of an SUV fleeing a crime scene. I was just waiting for you to be ready. I'm ready. Good, because I had David book the venue 3 months ago. Sienna laughed. You're so sure of yourself. I'm sure of you. There's a difference. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. The ceremony was at a small estate outside the city, intimate and private. 20 people total. Mrs. Harlow cried. Vincent looked uncomfortable in a suit jacket. David gave a speech that was surprisingly moving. Sienna wore ivory silk, simple and elegant. Lucian wore black because, of course, he did. They stood in front of people who'd become family, not through blood but through choice, and said vows that actually meant something. I promise to see you, Sienna said, hands clasped in his. Not the empire or the reputation or the fear everyone else sees. Just you. The man who reads philosophy at 3 a.m. and gets genuinely excited about thread count and loves me even when I'm reorganizing his entire life. I see you, Lucian, and I choose you every day for the rest of my life. Lucian's voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. I promise to let you see me, to stop hiding behind walls and strategy. To trust that you won't use my weaknesses against me, because you've never once done that even when you could have. You made a tomb into a home. You made me remember what it feels like to be human instead of just a weapon. I choose you, Sienna, not because I need you, though I do, because I love you, because my life is better with you in it, because you're the only person who's ever made me want to be more than what I was built to be. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. When they kissed, it felt different than all the other times. This wasn't performance, wasn't heat or desperation or relief. This was promise, permanence, peace. The reception was small, informal. Good food, better wine, actual laughter. Sienna danced with Lucian to music that wasn't a string quartet for once, and he held her like they were the only two people in the world. Happy? He asked. Deliriously. Good, because I have something for you. He led her away from the party, into a quiet room where David was waiting with a folder. What's this? Sienna asked. Your wedding present. Open it. She opened the folder. Inside were legal documents, business licenses, contracts. I don't understand, she said. I'm transitioning out, Lucian said. Like you suggested. I've been working on it for the past month. Selling the shipping companies, promoting people I trust to run the real estate holdings, keeping a few key investments, but stepping back from operations. It'll take another year to fully extricate myself, but I'm doing it. I'm walking away. Sienna stared at him. You're serious? Completely. I've spent 20 years building an empire I didn't even want, fighting wars that don't matter, proving I was strong enough to survive in a world that tried to kill me. And I'm tired, Sienna. I'm so tired. You asked me what I'm still fighting for, and I realized nothing. I'm fighting for nothing except habit and pride. So I'm stopping, while I still can, while I still have you. She kissed him, hard, desperate. You're sure? This is your entire life. No, you're my entire life. This was just how I filled the time before I met you. David cleared his throat. If you two are done being disgustingly romantic, there's a party happening. People are starting to ask where the bride and groom went. Let them ask, Lucian said, not taking his eyes off Sienna. We'll be there in a minute. After David left, Sienna held Lucian's face in her hands. This is really happening. You're really doing this. We're really doing this. Together. Whatever comes next. What does come next? I don't know, that's the terrifying part. He smiled. But I'm looking forward to finding out. They went back to the party hand in hand. When midnight struck and the new year began, they kissed surrounded by people who'd watched them transform from a contract into something real. And for the first time in years, Lucian Moretti looked at the future and felt something other than dread. He felt hope. The transition took 14 months, longer than Lucian had planned, but these things couldn't be rushed. He had to make sure everyone he was promoting was actually trustworthy, had to ensure the businesses would survive without him, had to tie up loose ends that had been accumulating for 2 decades. Victor made noise a few times, small provocations, testing to see if Lucian's exit was real or strategic. Each time Lucian responded, but measured, controlled, not interested in escalation. "You're really doing it," Victor said at their final meeting, walking away. "I am." "Why?" Lucian thought about lying, about giving him some strategic reason that would make sense in their world. Instead, he told the truth. "Because I found something worth living for instead of just fighting for. And I'm not interested in losing it to play games with you." Victor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I can respect that. For what it's worth, you would have won if you'd stayed. You always were better at this than me." "I know," Lucian said. "No arrogance, just fact." They shook hands, 2 men who'd been enemies for years, finding mutual respect in the strangest place, one of them walking away. When Lucian got home, Sienna was in her studio working on a design for a museum renovation. She looked up when he entered. "How'd it go?" "It's done. All of it. I'm officially retired." She set down her pencil. "How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, free, all of it at once." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "What do I do now?" "Whatever you want, that's the whole point. I want to travel, see the world with you, go places I've only been to for business and actually enjoy them." "Done. Where first?" "Italy. I have a villa there I've owned for 10 years and never actually visited. Seems like a good place to start." "When do we leave?" "Whenever you're ready." Sienna looked at her designs, at the studio Lucian had built for her, at the life she'd created here. "Give me 2 weeks to finish this project," she said. "Then I'm all yours." "You're already all mine." "True, but in 2 weeks, I'll be all yours in Italy." "Better?" "Much better." They spent 6 months traveling. Italy, Greece, Spain, Morocco, places where no one knew Lucian Moretti or cared about his reputation, where they could be anonymous, normal, happy. Sienna took photos, hundreds of them. Lucian reading on a balcony in Santorini, the market in Marrakesh, sunset over the Mediterranean. She was building a catalog of moments that had nothing to do with contracts or danger or performance. Just them, living. In a small town on the Amalfi Coast, they had dinner at a restaurant that had been there for 200 years. Family-owned. Loud. Chaotic. Perfect. "This is what I want," Sienna said, watching the family who owned the place argue over the evening's menu. "What do you want?" "This. Roots. History. Something that lasts." She looked at him. "I want kids, Lucian. Eventually. Not now, but someday. I want to fill that big house with people who actually belong there. I want chaos and noise and mess. I want the opposite of what you grew up with." Lucian was quiet. She couldn't read his expression. "If you don't want that, tell me now," Sienna said. "I need to know." "I want it," he said quietly. "I'm just terrified I'll be terrible at it, that I'll turn into my father, that I'll damage them the way I was damaged." "You won't. You know how I know?" "How?" "Because you're scared of it. Your father wasn't. He thought he was doing everything right. You already know better." She took his hand. "You'll be a good father, Lucian, because you'll try. Because you'll care. That's all anyone can do. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. But so was falling in love with you, and that worked out pretty well." He smiled, actually smiled. "Pretty well? That's all I get?" "Okay, fine. Spectacularly well. Best decision I ever made, even when you were being an arrogant ass about furniture and dress codes." "I was not an arrogant ass. You absolutely were. You're lucky you're pretty. He kissed her there in the loud, chaotic restaurant, surrounded by strangers who didn't care who he used to be. Just saw a man kissing his wife, both of them happy, both of them free. Mond. They came home in June. The estate was exactly as they'd left it, maintained, beautiful, waiting. Sienna threw herself back into work. Her business had grown while they were gone, word of mouth bringing in clients faster than she could take them. She hired 2 associates, rented actual office space, built something real that had nothing to do with Lucian's money or connections. Lucian took longer to find his footing. Retirement didn't come naturally to someone who'd spent 20 years in constant motion. He read more, invested in things he actually cared about, a scholarship fund, a community center in the neighborhood where he grew up, art programs for kids who needed them. He was learning to be a person instead of a weapon. It was slow, messy, imperfect, but he was trying. One night, Sienna found him in the library staring at the shelves like they held answers. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm bored," he admitted. "I know I'm not supposed to be. I know this is what I wanted, but I don't know what to do with myself when I'm not fighting someone. So find something to fight for instead of against. Like what?" "I don't know. What pisses you off? What makes you want to burn things down in a productive way?" He thought about it. The way kids in certain neighborhoods don't get the same opportunities. The way money determines everything about your life before you're old enough to have a say. The way people like me get every advantage, while people who are smarter, harder working, better, they get nothing. So fix it. You have money. You have influence. You spent 20 years building power. Use it for something that matters. He stopped. That's actually not a terrible idea. I have those sometimes. He pulled her into his lap. You have them all the time. You saw potential in a house everyone else thought was perfect just because it was expensive. You saw potential in me when everyone else just saw danger. You see things, Sienna. It's your gift. Then use your gift, she said. You're good at strategy, at seeing angles, at making impossible things happen. Imagine what you could do if you pointed all of that at actually helping people instead of just surviving. The foundation launched in September. Small at first. Scholarships for kids in underprivileged neighborhoods, mentorship programs, job training. Lucian threw himself into it with the same intensity he'd brought to everything else, except this time the goal wasn't survival, it was creation. "You're happy," Sienna said one night, watching him work through applications. "I'm useful. There's a difference." "Is there?" He looked up. "I spent 20 years being useful to people who didn't deserve it, solving problems for criminals and corrupt businessmen. Making rich people richer. He gestured at the applications. "These are kids who remind me of who I used to be. Smart, but broke. Ambitious, but stuck. If I can help even a few of them, maybe that balances out some of the damage I did." "You're a good man, Lucian Moretti." "I'm a work in progress." "Same thing. Ma." 2 years after they renewed their vows, Sienna got pregnant. She told him over breakfast, casual as anything. "So, that thing we talked about in Italy? The kids thing? We should probably start preparing because it's happening in about 7 months." Lucian dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor. He stared at her like she'd announced she was actually an alien. You're pregnant?" "Very. I took 3 tests. All positive." How long have you?" "I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you right away, but you had that meeting with the foundation board, and I didn't want to distract you." He was around the table in a second, hands on her face, her shoulders, her stomach. "You're pregnant. We've established that. We're having a baby. Also established. I'm going to be a father." "There it is. You caught up." He kissed her, gentle, reverent, terrified. "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together, like everything else." "What if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be. And on the days when you are, I'll be there to pick up the slack. And vice versa. That's how this works." Mrs. Harlow appeared in the doorway, took one look at them, and smiled, actually smiled. "I'll have the nursery prepared. The blue room, I think. Good light." "We don't know if it's a boy yet," Sienna said. "Doesn't matter. The blue room works for anyone." She started to leave, then paused. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Moretti. It's about time this house had some joy in it." After she left, Lucian pulled Sienna back into his arms. I'm terrified. I know. I have no idea what I'm doing. I know. But I want this. I want everything with you. I know that too. They stood in the kitchen, surrounded by broken ceramic and coffee spreading across the floor, holding each other. And Sienna thought that this was what it meant to build a life. Not the perfect moments, the messy ones, the scared ones, the ones where you didn't have answers, but you had each other. Their daughter was born in March. 7 pounds, healthy lungs, eyes that would eventually turn the same dark color as Lucian's. They named her Elena, after no one, just because they both liked it. Lucian held her for the first time with hands that had done terrible things, and cried. Actually cried. Sienna took a photo on her phone. This dangerous man reduced to tears by 7 pounds of human. She's so small, he said. She'll get bigger. What if I drop her? You won't. And if you do, babies are surprisingly resilient. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. Welcome to parenthood. Nothing is comforting ever again. He looked at Sienna, this woman who'd walked into his life desperate and determined, and somehow seen past everything he'd built to the person underneath. Thank you. For what? For this. For her. For making me believe I could have something other than empire and enemies. For loving me when I didn't deserve it. You deserved it. You just didn't know it yet. She touched Elena's tiny hand. She deserves it too. A father who'll actually be there. Who'll choose her over power. Who'll show her that being strong doesn't mean being cruel. I'll try. That's all anyone can ask. The years blurred together in the best way. Elena grew. The foundation expanded. Sienna's business thrived. Lucian learned to change diapers and read bedtime stories and understand that sometimes the most important battles were getting a toddler to eat vegetables. Victor Castellano reached out once, years later, not for war, for advice. His own daughter was getting married, and he wanted to know how to be a better father than he'd been. Talk to her, Lucian said. Actually listen. Don't try to control everything. Let her make mistakes and be there when she falls. That's all you can do. That's it? That's your wisdom? That's it. Parenting isn't strategy, it's just showing up every day. Even when you're tired or scared or you have no idea what you're doing, you just show up. You've gone soft, Moretti. I've gone happy. There's a difference. After the call, Sienna found him in Elena's room, watching her sleep. You okay? She asked. Victor called. Wanted parenting advice. From you? I know. It's absurd. He turned to face her. But I realized something. I'm actually good at this. Not perfect. I still mess up constantly. But I'm good at it. And that's not something I ever thought I'd be able to say. You're good at a lot of things. I'm good at things that matter now. There's a difference. Sienna leaned against him. They stood in the doorway of their daughter's room, in the house that had gone from tomb to home, and Sienna thought about the contract that had brought them together. The 18 months that was supposed to end with her walking away with $5 million and a clean slate. She'd gotten so much more than that. A husband who'd learned to be human. A daughter who'd never know what it felt like to live in a house without love. A life built on choice instead of desperation. Do you ever think about it? Lucian asked quietly. The original contract. What would have happened if you'd taken the money and left? Sometimes. Usually when you're being annoying about something. He laughed. Fair. But honestly, no. I don't think about it much. Because this, she gestured at everything. The room, the house, laws, the life they'd built. This is so much better than anything $5 million could have bought me. You could have had both, the money and your freedom. I have my freedom, and I have you. That's better than money. You've changed, Lucian said. When I met you, you were desperate, angry, ready to do anything to survive. So were you. And now we're desperate and angry about different things, like getting our daughter to sleep through the night and whether to repaint the guest room. Domestic problems. Normal problems. I like normal. Me too. Elena stirred in her sleep. They both froze, waiting to see if she'd wake up. She didn't, just settled deeper into her blankets, content. We did good, Lucian said. We did. And we're going to keep doing good, for a long time. They left Elena's room, turned out the light, and went to bed in the room they'd shared for years. The $30,000 mattress was still there, but everything else had changed. Photos on the walls, Sienna's design books on the nightstand, Lucian's reading glasses on the dresser, evidence of a life lived together, imperfectly, honestly, real. In the morning, Elena would wake them up too early. Lucian would make coffee while Sienna changed diapers. They'd have breakfast in the kitchen that had seen so many dinners, so many conversations, so many moments of becoming, and it would be normal, ordinary. Everything they'd both spent years thinking they didn't deserve. But that was the thing about love, Sienna had learned. It wasn't about deserving, it was about choosing. Every single day, choosing to stay, choosing to try, choosing to believe that broken things could be fixed and cold things could be warmed and people could change if they wanted it badly enough. She'd chosen Lucian in a moment of desperation, signed a contract that should have ended with her walking away wealthy and alone. Instead, she'd walked towards something better, something real, something that started as strategy and became the most genuine thing in her life. And Lucian, who'd spent 20 years building walls and empires and defenses, had chosen to tear it all down, to be vulnerable, to be human, to be a husband and a father instead of just a name that made people afraid. They'd both chosen each other, not because they had to, not because of contracts or money or strategy, but because love, real love, was the only thing that ever actually saved anyone, not from danger or enemies or the darkness of the world, but from themselves, from the belief that they were too broken, too damaged, too far gone to deserve something good. Sienna had been wrong about a lot of things, but she'd been right about Lucian, right to see the potential buried under all that cold control, right to stay when every logical bone in her body screamed to run, right to believe that a contract marriage could become something worth keeping. And as she fell asleep next to the man who'd once been a stranger offering her a deal, she thought about the girl who'd stood outside the Celestine Tower, deciding whether to go up to a penthouse and meet a man who could save her or destroy her. That girl had been desperate, broke, angry at the world and everyone in it. This woman, the one who'd transformed a house and a man and herself. She was none of those things anymore. She was happy, loved, home, and that, more than any $5 million, more than any empire or reputation or power, was worth everything. The contract had been voided years ago. The 18 months had come and gone. The deal had ended. But the marriage, the real one, the one built on choice and trust and love that surprised them both, that was forever. And forever, it turned out, looked pretty good on them.